Hello and welcome to the PT's PT podcast.
Hello.
I am your host, Dr. Sean Lorden, and today I've got the pleasure of talking with Rizz.
Yes.
So welcome, Rizz. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Sean. So my name is Roshawn Isidor, also known as Rizz. I am a second-year URI DPT student, and I am the creator of rizzfitness. It's an online social media brand created to just, give people access to the things that I'm blessed to learn that they don't really have access to or they just don't see from the day-to-day basis. So I just want to help as many people as I can, and just thank you for having me here.
Awesome. That's great. Well, pleasure to have you. And tell us a little bit about how you get started, and really what it's like to build your own brand as a DPT.
Yeah, so in DPT school, I realized that every individual has their own brand, and the thing is, not too many people act on it, whether if they're just scared to or they don't believe their brand is good enough. However, no matter what you're doing, I think you should act on it. Just jump in the water and create it, because you never know who you're going to inspire. You never know who's going to see you as that valuable resource that they could go to when they need you. So that's what I did. I created rizzfitness. I got a camera. It was easy going in the summer before my second year. And then September came and my course load just hit me like a boulder. And I was like, wow, how am I going to manage the two? So it's just strategically planning. I focused on my study time, getting my homework done. I had days where, okay, I'm going to shoot all of this on Wednesday so I could post this Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, the next week. So that worked out for me, luckily. And now we're here talking to each other, allowing other people to do what I did and what you're doing. So that's pretty much how I'm here. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it seems like it's presented you with some opportunities.
Definitely.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I've had brands ask me to represent themselves. That's just a crazy opportunity in itself. I never would have even expected that to happen. So luckily, I decided to be more local. So, for example, a brand, Atrocity, shout out to you guys. They're a sports brand, a lifestyle brand that want me to just promote just aesthetic of fitness. And that's one opportunity just there. Me simply being here is an amazing opportunity, to connect with an established PT, owner of multiple clinics, and, just to have this platform to talk to people like myself or people already within the field. That's just an amazing opportunity in itself. And it all started from just having a camera and doing what we do right now. So, yeah.
It's incredible, huh?
Yeah.
You talked about helping people.
Yes.
Talk to me about how you help people with your videos.
Yeah. So, like I said, I created rizzfitness because where I'm from, there's not too much guidance on what to do in health. Everyone knows, okay, I got to go to the gym. I got to get this done. But they don't know the little caveats that I've learned in school. And I realized, people will ask me, hey, Rizz, you're in DPT school. What is this? What is that? And I realized the farther I get in DPT school, the more questions I got. That might be a thing. You probably get so many questions just because you're a physical therapist. So I was like, I might as well just create a platform answering these questions generally to give access to that. And that will inspire whoever inspires. And honestly, we could get into it in a little bit, but that was one of my caveats, just not focusing on how many people see it, as long as one person sees it and feels like they've been touched and they could rely on me as a resource. That's just a blessing in itself. So, yeah. My slogan is feel better, move better. And I live by that, die by that. And that's how we're here, yeah.
I love that. Don't you feel sometimes how, you put videos out and people learn, you answer questions, right? So that's sort of how I started podcasting. And, patients would tell me, hey, what is it like to get a total hip replacement? Or, hey, what's it like to get a total knee replacement? What are what do the first couple weeks look like? What does the surgical prep look like? What does all that look like? And I started answering these questions, on a video, type format, or, with articles in the newspapers back in the day. And I felt like, it's funny, you answer one question and then 10 more questions come from that one question.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that in your experience.
Yeah. So like I said, it started with, when I first started rizzfitness, it was just kind of for fun, and it was more workout videos. You do this workout, and I got a comment, well, how does this help me do this or achieve this goal? So I made one video on that, and then boom, that's when the engagement just rose. And then multiple people started asking questions. And then there's this one video about how to lose fat that went crazy viral. It's currently at 2 million views. And it just stemmed from one person, well, multiple people asking how to implement that into their lifestyle. And when I made it, I did not expect it to actually, hit the internet like the way it impacted. And, I'm super grateful for that video because it definitely propelled me forward. And that's why I have to emphasize, like, yo, just create the content. Just do it. You will do something you never would have thought you would have done before. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and so on that note, it's obviously uncomfortable getting started, being in front of the camera, putting yourself out there to people.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way so far.
Yeah, so me personally, I had to realize that I can't, just always think about what other people are thinking. That's one thing. Just do what you are born to do, especially with physical therapy. I know that I'm born to be the best clinician that I can be. One day business owner. I'm putting that out there. I'm putting that out there for me to claim. So
you have to. You have to put it out there. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in you.
Yeah. So honestly, that's just what it is. And yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny. There was something that I heard or I read someday, and it'll come back to me. But it's essentially along the lines of, if you don't believe, like we were talking about, if you don't believe in yourself, you have to believe in yourself and your vision first, right? Yeah. But you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the future of PT, how fitness, wellness, and performance are blending. I feel like everything's kind of coming together, right? PT is becoming more of a wellness field, and we've always talked about for a long time preventative medicine, but we haven't done a great job as a field of really kind of accomplishing that. We're still treat when sick.
Yeah.
So talk to me about how you're working to really prevent injuries.
Yeah. So the way I see it, it's all connected, and we want people to feel better, move better, so they don't get, that ACL tear. But obviously, they come to us and we give them as much advice as we can, and, we hope they do better. So that's why physical therapy is so awesome. I know stories of people that go to PT and don't want to get discharged because of how resourceful that PT is. So that was the whole thinking behind Rizz Fitness. Is like, okay, since we're so resourceful, why don't we just put this out there, and like just to teach as many people as possible. I seen an interview actually, and this is what really struck me. It was I don't remember if it was Shaq or Charles Barkley, but they were comparing physical therapy to athletes, people that like LeBron James, and it's like the whole argument was, why don't doctors, make as much as athletes? And obviously it's not about the money, but it's because, he said that athletes have more reach. They help more people at one time. And, that really struck me because it was like, as a clinician, I'll probably see only 12 patients a day. But I know that everything that I have in my head, resources and much, can help multiple people. So it's just about, getting the content out there, making sure that people see the bigger picture, not just preventative care or post-rehab care. It's about, making people understand that everything is connected. So, yeah, that's the goal, man. Yeah. That's the goal.
I mean, talk about a visionary. That's like exactly, that's a visionary's thought process is, when I entered PT, my first goal was just to become a great PT.
Yes.
Right? And I want to talk to you about this too, a little bit about, how you feel like a new grad stands out, and what the difference between a good PT to you and just an okay PT or really maybe the difference between a good PT and a great one is to you. But it's funny, the visionary piece is, and the ultimate question is, we go to school for PT to help people. So why aren't we asking, how can we help more people?
Yeah.
Right? So you can help 12 people in a day at most. If you're at some of our competitors, you're helping 20, 25 people a day.
Oh my God.
Which is what it is. And that's not a model that's sustainable in our field, right? There's only a certain amount of patients that you can treat with quality.
Yeah.
And attention, and there's a balance to that. Talk to me about that vision of yours and how to really get that number from 12 to 1,200 to 12,000 to 12 million. How do you plan to do that?
Honestly, it's just by being as consistent as I can.
Yeah.
You know, people love consistency, so, and quality. You know, like I could try to, for example, you know, try to help 22 people one day. That'll lead me to burnout. However, I know that if I post consistently Monday, Wednesday, Friday, people will rely on me to be okay. Let's go on Instagram today. We'll see what Rizz has for me today. You know.
Yeah.
So it's just about being a consistent resource. You know, and just growing to different parts of the world. I have people that has texted me from Brazil asking me, I'm serious, asking me for advice on this, that, and the third. And it's such a pleasure because it's like out of all the resources that you have, all the clinical sign, like the clinic signs you see, you pass by, you decide to stumble upon my page and ask me. So that's just amazing. So understanding that you have the potential to reach as many people that is on this earth is just crazy. But going back to like what you said about the lessons within this, it's not getting too caught up in that. Don't get too caught up in the views, because that's when you delete a video when you have only, like, let's say 500 views. I've done that personally. I've had videos that
I thought that was pretty good. No.
yeah, but honestly, yeah, it's like I've had videos that was underwhelming in my opinion, and I've deleted it the next day. And then I'll get a DM saying, yo, Rizz, where's this video? And I'm like, what do you mean? It wasn't too good. People didn't see it. And he was like, I thought it was amazing. I saved it, and I was trying to go back to it to actually implement it. And that's when it hit me. I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter how many people see it. As long as you touch and inspire one person, that's what it is at the end of the day. And that's just a blessing in itself, yeah.
I mean, you've unlocked something that not many people in totality understand, right? Which is global reach. So anybody who's listening to this, like, that's just complete gold.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to reach more people, that's power. You know, that's what pro athletes, and you talk about Shaq and Charles and you know, Tom Brady, that's what they all have in common, is people look at them as whether they like it or not, really as mentors and as authority figures, you know. And it's funny because their presence is powerful across everything. No matter what field you're in, you're like, oh, Tom Brady, like,
it
excellence,
matter.
Right? Or, you know, Michael Jordan, excellence.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, Tiger Woods, right? The same thing, excellence. So, but I think, you know, talking about that reach is so important. And, you know, I think in your journey as a clinician, you start treating 10 to 12 or 10 to 14 patients a day or whatever that clinic expects of you. Yeah. But it makes you hone in on your craft, which then makes your videos better because you know a little bit more. You can tailor toward an audience that you may not have known how to treat. Maybe it's neurological. Maybe it's an athlete that you've never treated that had a surgery that you've never seen. You know, and you're like, hey, if he just did this, if he did these jumping prep, if he did these glute med, if he did these eccentric exercises, this would have prevented this. And now you've, you know, if a 14-year-old kid who's going to be we've got a family friend who's young and he's a really, you know, an awesome football player. You know, and so he's coming to one of our clinics every week to make sure that he's prepared to go to that next level.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right? And it's, if you reach somebody like that who's maybe doesn't have the family background or doesn't have the support system or the ecosystem of, you know, all the fancy coaches and the fancy high school. Like, and he starts doing your exercises and it's preventative medicine and then he doesn't tear the ACL and he gets to go to like, those are the success stories that you're never going to know about, but you created that. You've reached somebody's life. So that's really cool. Talk about setting yourself up. Well, actually, let's go back.
All right.
What separates a good PT from a great one today, in your opinion?
Okay. So, you know, I didn't graduate yet, but from what I know, from what I've seen, as a new grad PT or just in general, you know, just to clarify.
I think let's talk about how to stand out. So let's talk about as a new grad, right? Okay. So a new grad, what do you feel like, you know, because that's really where you're going to be in a year, right?
Yes.
So what do you feel like, and you can look at your classmates, you can look across the country, what do you feel like separates a great new grad from a good new grad?
So I think what separates a great new grad from just a good one is understanding that the world is your resource. You know, looking at just people that I know, there's some people that want to have their hand held in the world after graduate school. That's just not how it's gonna be, you know. And then there's people that want to get thrown in the ocean, you know. And then but I feel like those who want to get thrown in the ocean want to know that, okay, you might have been thrown out there, but I got you just in case, you know, you drown. So that's me. I think that I just want to get I just want to dive into it, but knowing that whoever I'm with is willing, to pull me out, give me feedback, then throw me back in, So it's understand that most people have a mentor to look at and to guide them through the rest of their career or however long. But just understanding that you have books that you could read on your own. You have resources that you could do on your own. So I think it's just putting the extra time and extra effort that no one will ever see. Those are the things that you don't document, or you might not be able to because you're just so into it. So honestly, just putting your best mind forward and doing the work that you'll never get credit for, but it'll show in your practice. In my opinion, I think that is what separates, the average from the best. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of grit.
Yeah, just gotta do it. Do the man's work, or woman.
You talked about mentorship.
Yes.
And Brooke actually brought something up that we were talking about. We talk about, in our interviews with like younger PTs, because even younger PTs, 2-3 years out, they ask for mentorship too.
Yes.
And one of the things, it's really almost advice that Brooke says to them is like, I know you're interviewing at other places, ask them who's currently in their mentorship program and who their mentor is.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everybody says they have a mentorship program.
Yeah. And
it's not, it's check-ins, with a senior PT once a week or once a month. And, it's tough. Like I've got to give a little bit of slack to the smaller clinics because it really is difficult to put together a comprehensive leadership training program, communication training program, operations training program, financial training program, right? Like it's tough to put a clinical training program together. Yeah. That's all really difficult stuff to put together. Yeah. And it takes strategy, and it takes a lot of time and effort, and it takes the right people to implement it. Yeah. We've tried over the years with the wrong people at times to implement certain mentorship strategies, and it just hasn't worked because we haven't had the right people on the team. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're at a place now 7 years in where we have the right people. Yeah. But talk to me, I guess the mentorship piece is something that is really personal to me because I've had great mentors. Yeah. But I've always asked for it.
Yeah. That was actually going to be my question. I want you to tell the people, like, how do we get that mentor? Like, how do we go about it, in your opinion? Because you, obviously being 7 years into this clinic, or is it just being a clinic owner in itself?
Yeah, so I've been a PT. I graduated PT school in 2012. So I've been a PT for 13 or 14 years. Yeah. And I've owned concierge for 7. Okay. So I started my career. I worked, for Tom and Eileen Murphy, who are awesome people, and I learned a lot from them and their business. And then I worked in every other setting. I worked in home health. I worked in skilled nursing. I worked in the hospitals. Yeah. So I got a feel for everything, But to your exact point, I found somebody in Tom and Eileen who were doing what I wanted to do. Yes. And who were where I wanted to be someday. Okay. And I emulated everything. Yes. Their habits, their daily, I asked a ton of questions, and I really owe them a lot, in terms of the opportunity they gave me. But it was a great in terms of a mentorship scenario. I always say, find the person who you want to be in 5 or 10 years and ask them. You have to ask, because if you're just like, oh, well, I want to work for you or whatever, that's great. But if they don't understand, if you're not clear and direct of what you're looking for, then you're never going to get it. Indeed. And at my point in life and my station, now I'm finding people who are where I want to be entrepreneurially. Yeah. Right? Who are where I want to be, from a podcast side of things. Yeah. And I'm following them, and I'm reaching out, and I'm picking up the phone, and I'm, asking the difficult questions. Yeah. There was a conference that I went to, Rizz. I think it was the Perform Better conference in Providence, which is like for personal trainers. It's a cool conference. You get to like learn a bunch of different exercises, and
I'll write that down.
It's a cool conference. And there was a speaker, I forget who it was. It might have been Frank Nash, who's an awesome personal trainer in Worcester. But essentially, he was like, I called up. Was it Joe Theismann? Is it Theismann?
I couldn't tell you.
One of the old quarterbacks, like basically Dan Marino. He's like called up Dan Marino, and he was an athletic trainer or a PT. Yeah. He's like, hey Dan, like, I want to work with you. Yeah. Like he got it. This is back in the day of the phone book. He literally opened up the phone book. Yeah. Got Dan Marino's phone number. Like kept calling. He called him 3 or 4 times. Yeah. I was like, hey Dan, I want to work with you. I want to work with you. And finally he was like, all right, man. Like I'll work with you. I'll give you one chance. And he blew it out of the water, and he ended up being Dan Marino's guy.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be, and just right back to your point about the camera. Like, you bought the camera. It's never comfortable being in front of a camera. Nobody wants to be in front of a camera.
Yeah.
But it's to your point. Like, if your goal is to change the world and to get people to to really to access a higher level of health education, you have to be uncomfortable.
You have to. Yeah. And it's also just understanding, based off what you said, what I got from that is that you don't need to recreate the wheel. It's already invented.
Yeah.
You just have to ask the person how they did it, emulating what they did. That will get you to where you want to be. So it's understanding when to ask for help and how to do it. You don't have to do it all on your own. And that's something that, another lesson I got from Rizz Fitness is, I remember just sitting down, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of things to make content on. And it's like, well, the fitness industry is so saturated. I looked at the top people that I want to be like, and I was like, okay, let me look at the topics they covered. And I was like, that's something that I resonate with, I think I could do it a little better, or I could do it similar, So it's just understanding that you don't have to do it alone. And by doing that, you'll save yourself so much time and so much effort. And I like the cold calling, like, hey, I want to work for you. I like that. That's something that I definitely have to, implement into my own life. Getting uncomfortable, asking the people in power, okay, I need to know how you did this. And if possible, can we please work with each other? And then, I think just doing that will put not only myself, but anyone who's listening into positions that we want to be in. So that was gold right there. Thank you. Yeah.
I think most successful people will tell you that if they get a call from somebody who's on their way up, that it's really their duty to at least have a lunch.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, listen, I can give you some nuggets. I can answer your questions. It's tough to, like, if I looked 7 years ago and I like to show you the path to where I am today, there are so many different like directions. It really is like that chart that's like, it goes all over the place. There's some success and then a lot of failure, some success, a lot of failures, more success, more failure. Yeah. And it's really kind of, you speak in generalities. I think the biggest thing is you have to spend time around those people. Yeah. I'm a big fan of surround yourself with the 5 people you surround yourself the most, or the 4 people, whatever it is. Yeah. Those 5 people you are a product of those 5 people who you spend the most time with. And that to me rings true, across every industry. And there are studies that show that. There are studies that show that, median level of, income and all that stuff is literally like, you look at your 5 best friends, like, you're going to have a lot of the same sort of traits. Yeah. How are you setting yourself up right now for the career you want later?
Oh my gosh, it's by doing things like this, finding new people in places that I want to be in, connecting with them. Not only doing that, but just being uncomfortable. Like I said, this is my first podcast ever, and I really appreciate you having me here. And it's like, me declining this would have been a crazy thing to do. It's like, that's me prohibiting myself from access to people that, like, could help me in my career. Why would I ever do that? So it's about being uncomfortable. It's about finding new connections, cold calling, cold emailing, and, just making sure that I am perfecting my craft. Understanding that there is a plan that I set for myself to follow. And, if I diverge from that, okay, that's okay, that will happen. But understanding that, okay, just because I diverge, I can't let it widen, because when you stay out of focus, that's when you hop out of your flow and, you kind of get lost. It's like, okay, I want to do this now, but I want to do this, but I want to do this. So it's just staying focused, finding my craft, perfecting it, and just being that guy for whatever I want to do. I want to be like, hey, like, you have this problem, go to Rizz. Like, that's just my goal. So, just trying to be the best me, building my brand, making sure that it's what I want it to be. And that's just how I'm setting myself up for success. And we'll see where it gets me, man. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think you'll find too, Rizz, that, as you go along in your journey, you'll reiterate and reiterate and reiterate and change and adapt and grow. So where you are today is an awesome foundation, right? And then you're going to graduate and you're going to start working, right? And you're going to build an even stronger foundation, and you start to build the house. It's cool. What do new grads actually want in their first job?
Culture. Yeah, definitely. It's Well, it's a combination of things. All right, if we're gonna be real here, it's a combination. So, one is I believe new grads want competitive pay. You know, like obviously as a new grad, you know, a lot of people don't talk about pay. And as a new grad, there is expectations for pay within that area. So it's understanding what is within that area, understanding what you're asking for. It will be turned into expectations versus experience versus a teachable moment. So that's one. Number two is culture. So it's being something that you're proud of. You know, it's like you don't want to go to work for someone that you don't even believe in, or for a place that doesn't allow you to have personality, or a place where that doesn't allow you to feel like, all right, this is me. Like, for example, like you guys have green, you know, bleed green. That's amazing. I love that. I love that. And then I'm trying to remember the last thing, man. I want to say just a place to grow, an opportunity to grow. So accepting who that new grad is for what they are, seeing it in them, and then pushing them in that direction to be as successful as possible. So, and if you see them, you know, diverting away, let them know, give them the proper feedback. But like I said, don't let them drown. But yeah, throw them in the ocean, see how they do. And then, you know, if they need help, you know, pull them out, shake them up a little bit, and throw them right back out there. So I think that's what new grads are looking for. That's what I'm looking for personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. We started, I think those are all like top three, no matter what like order you put them in.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, you know, that we definitely look at. And I always say we want to be in the top 1% of pay.
Okay.
You know, across the country.
Yeah, amazing.
And, you know, there are challenges with that, Rizz. You know, our insurance contracts challenge that.
Yeah.
We've got payers that pay us 25% below what it costs to provide an appointment. So access to care is something that's been really important to me and to us and to our family. And we're a community-based, you know, clinic, right? Or set of clinics. And no matter how big we grow, it's important to me that we can still serve the community around us.
Yeah.
You know, and that they have access to excellent health care.
Yeah.
It's really important to me.
Yeah.
So I think, and we talked a little bit offline about the business of PT.
Yeah.
Right. And what does that mean? And what is that, you know, how does that affect, you know, the field moving forward? And, you know, I think the reason, you know, we talk about, I feel like new grad offers are all over the place now, you know, and I think that in order to attract, the bottom line is in order to attract and retain the best talent, you have to pay the best.
That's what it is.
You know, but then the expectations aren't going to be mediocre.
Yeah.
The expectations are going to be high.
Yeah.
And that's not always see the most patients. You can't compete in a volume game.
Yeah.
You can't compete in a volume game. You know, I think that, you know, our expectation is that our staff, you know, we have core values, you know, we have 4 core values, but positive attitude, customer service, excellence, and Brooke, remind me of the last one. My brain is like...
Positive attitude,
Teamwork.
Nice.
There we go. I mean, how about that?
Yeah.
Teamwork.
That is teamwork right there. It literally is.
You know, but it's funny, you know, and I recite those every Monday at our leadership meeting. But, you know, those 4 things really embody like the perfect PT to us. It's like being excellent, you know, studying every day and just trying to get 1% better. That's part of our culture. Yeah. And we work with a company called Lead 'em Up that comes in once a year and does a cool like retreat with our company. And, you know, we kind of, you know, it's just a kind of a rah day for our team.
Yeah.
But it lives in our weekly huddles, you know, the 1% better, the green wins, we call them.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your win from last week? You know, you could be like, well, I did a podcast with Sean. That was my win last week.
That is my win.
But, you know, I think that what we look for, you know, aligns a lot with that. You know? And I think culture is something you just feel. Like you go in to interview someplace, you're going to feel whether that team feels taken care of or not.
Yeah.
And whether they take care of each other.
Yeah.
You know,
agreed.
So I think that's really cool. I think the business of PT is probably a separate conversation, and we're working to, you know, to hopefully get our reimbursement up to where it should be.
Yes.
Because it's tough. I mean, there are certain percentages that you have to work with, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that's just the business of it, you know, and I've been trying to get into the PT schools and, you know, and even just like recording a Zoom or like like something to share with the classes, like, hey, these are the numbers, and I'm fine sharing the numbers. You know, it's like these are the numbers. This is where our field is going. If we don't address and have a clear problem,
Yeah.
then you can never solve it.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't talk around it. You guys are coming out with serious debt.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to, PTs, in my opinion, should be at 6 figures yesterday. Every PT should be at 6 figures.
Wow. Yeah, I agree.
So it's my mission. Brooke and I, it's literally going to be on my, Daryl Elliott and I talk about it. He's like, $150 vids is going to be on my gravestone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, man, I totally agree with you. To me, it would be like, I want every single one of our PTs at 6 figures.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And it's just, we got to work with the payers, and and again, we can't compete in a volume game.
Yeah.
We're not going to be the clinic that's seeing 80, 90 visits a week ever.
Yeah.
It's just not good care.
Yeah.
And
it also leads to burnout.
It leads to burnout, and not to attack the PTs that are currently doing that.
Yeah.
It's not an attack. It's just, it's very difficult to do day after day treating 20 patients.
Yeah.
It's just very difficult, one-on-one.
I can imagine. I can imagine. You
Great.
should definitely come to URI. We have a management class, and people come in and give us advice. I think that was gold right there. Dr. M, we need to have Sean there. So we should definitely set that aside for at least the next year's class, because I think, like you said, the business portion to PT is something that should be, a light should be shown upon that just a tad more, just to prepare us for, outside of grad school. So,
and the same thing with Rhode Island's, right? So Rhode Island's reimbursement is less than Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So we're able to pay our PTs more than Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So if you live in the border in Rhode Island, you're crazy for not taking a job in Massachusetts because they'll pay you more.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to look at your options, and to really weigh.
Yeah.
Weigh, is this residency program worth it? If I'm going to have to pay back up, a ton of money, and maybe this isn't where I see myself.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's the right opportunity for you at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, maybe it's the drive, maybe it's the culture,
Yeah.
But I think if you're a PT and you live in Rhode Island, you should really make sure you check out the job offers around Massachusetts, because the reimbursement's higher.
Yeah.
So those are things that people just don't know and don't talk about
until it's too late.
Until you take a job and you're wrapped in. And
I wish I knew that 5 years ago.
There we go.
Yeah.
So let's wrap with a fun one, Rizz. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any 3 people, living or dead, who would they be and why?
All right. So honestly, this is a question that I am, I've been asked a few times, and I change my answer every time, just because, my position changes or my mindset changes. And sometimes it just depends on my mood, honestly. But right now, the 3 people that I would like to have dinner with is Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
2, I'm not sure if you're aware of, if you know who he is, but right now he's on social media. He's known as Squat University. He is a physical therapist that, does what I'm trying to do, he's so massive, and it's like his explanations are so in depth, and they're backed by research, and there's just no way you could just do that in a night. That's from experience. That's from literally looking into the research, taking the best from that to give to the people. So I would love to see and hear how he does that, what he goes about doing that, and how he does it so consistently. And growing up, my favorite actor was Will Smith, prior to the whole situation at the awards ceremony. But that's just something I would like to pick their brains about. I see them all as creators, taking something that they seen, making it better, and just exploiting it to the best of their ability, not only for them, but for people to come and to inspire others. So those are my top 3 right now.
Yeah.
Ask me tomorrow, it might be a different 3. But yeah. Can I ask you the same question back? Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know if I had enough time to prepare, but
yeah,
definitely my dad would be, up there. Probably family. I never get to meet my grandfather or my uncle Jackie.
Yeah.
So probably those 3.
Yeah. I've never thought about that perspective. Honestly, there's people that I've never met my grandparents neither. And, now that's something I might have to go ask my parents about, tell me a little more about that. Yeah, that was good. Thank you for that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do we see Rizz in 5 years?
Rizz in 5 years. Well, who knows, man? The way things are going, I could be far past my goals. For example, in Rizz Fitness, my goal was in the first year to have 1,000 followers. Right now I'm in month 10.
Yeah.
We're at 4.5. So it's in terms of Rizz Fitness, I hope that just stays consistent. I don't care about the number. As long as I am still posting, still giving that value, that sauce, I call it, to people that are looking to better their fitness, I'm happy. In terms of 5 years, I'll be 3-4 years post grad, working physical therapist. Hopefully I'll be in a company that I value to my heart, and I'm growing. I want to climb the ladder, you know. I don't want to say as quick as possible because experience needs to be had, but when necessary. So the highest position that I could be in 5 years, if I could be a clinic director in 5 years, I will take the job, you know. So in terms of wherever the opportunity is, you know, I'm from Massachusetts, and I do plan on staying here for the next 2 or 3 years. So we'll see if I'm still here. We'll see. I do have a clinical rotation in Florida. I was talking to Brooke about for my last, so maybe I'll be out there. Who knows? But as long as I am staying true to myself, you know, I don't switch up. You know, I don't let things corrupt my mind. I just hope that, you know, I stay genuine. I just hope that I'm in a position where I could look back and be like, wow, that's where I came from, you know, like being on top of the mountain and still looking up, you know, not getting too comfortable where I'm at. And that's me in 5 years, man. More to come. So,
love that.
Yeah.
I think what you'll find is you'll conquer mountains.
Yeah.
You know, but then when you look back, they look like hills.
Yeah.
So
that down.
People underestimate, and we talked about this before, how much they can accomplish in 10, 15, 20 years, and they overestimate how much they can accomplish in 90 days.
Yeah.
Or in 6 months, or in a year,
Yeah.
right? I think it's important to set, you know, honestly, they call them like, I think this is a Gino Wickman thing in traction, but big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs, he calls them. And, you know, you mentioned clinic ownership.
Yeah.
Is that something that you see yourself doing someday?
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's always been in the back of my head, like, you know, you want it. And I know I want it. You know, people tell me, like, just hold on, you know, see what you do after grad. Like, it changes. Like, my professors tell me, like, yo, like, you never know. You probably end up inpatient, or you'll do this. But I have it. I have the guy on my shoulder, like, just, you know, you want it. And I do know I want it. I want to be that leader for rising PTs. I want to be that person for just people in the area to go to, you know, and I could see it happening. I really can. So it's just about, you know, finding the right steps towards to do that. You know, like, a dream can always be a dream, but until you take that first step towards it, you know, things could happen just based off your first step. I got a camera and now I'm here. Yeah. That is so mind-blowing to me. You don't understand, like, and it's kind of funny, not to like backtrack or like go too far away, but this happened on accident. You know, I got a camera because I wanted to take pictures. Yeah. And then I got the camera. My friend, he's a photographer. He was like, you know, that's a video camera, right? And I was like, oh man, I guess I'll just make some videos. That's literally what happened. Yeah. So
4.5 million followers later. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, man. So it's just about doing the thing. That's what my professor says. You just got to do the thing. Yeah. So
you got to take that first step.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think if you want to be a clinic owner, you know, it's funny. We've talked about franchising, concierge PT, and, you know, so creating ownership layers or levels.
Yes.
You know, so that, you know, there is that opportunity. You know, it's not today, but hopefully maybe in a couple of years. I'd love to see concierge PT around the country.
Yeah.
You know, but it gives you the framework, so you don't have to learn all the hard lessons that I learned yourself. You know?
Yeah.
But I think for me personally, the strategy and just knowing, like, I knew when I graduated, I wanted to have 10 clinics.
Yes.
You know, that was going to be my starting point, really. It was like, and then along the way, you know, I realized that my starting point was getting one clinic off the ground, you know, and then getting to 2, which created its own challenges, and now we're at 5. And, you know, I think have the strategy. If you start with the end in mind, your life is going to take in all different directions, Rizz. You know, but if you know ultimately where you want to be, you're going to take daily action to get there. If you don't know where you're going, or you don't know that you want to be a clinic owner someday, or, you know, you want to be in charge, you're not going to take daily action toward that goal. Yeah. You know, so that's that. Well, you know, this has been a pleasure, Rizz. Thanks so much for coming up, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah. This is awesome, and I think there's a lot of gold in here for our audience. And,
I think so too,
and hopefully
man.
for your audience too.
Yeah. I'm gonna be pushing this out because I think a lot of people need to hear what we both said, you know. in terms of just if you're in DPT school, or if you're just looking to better your fitness, or if you're just looking to create something and make it yours and just give it to the world. I think there was some gold in here, and this has to be the first of many. I think we have so much to uncover and to, give out. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. And and to all those PTs out there who think that clinical life is the only life that there is, there's other ways to find success in physical therapy, and Rizz is perfect proof of that. So thanks for joining us today, Rizz.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.